Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we talk about zonal geraniums. So let's go. Here we are in almost the middle of July, and I wanted to make this video because I want to inspire you, not only for now, but I want you to think about later in the season and even think about next year. Now, you might be thinking, really, about zonal geraniums, thinking about next year? I have a lot of things I want to talk about when it comes to geraniums. So this beautiful red flower that you see here is a type of annual geranium. It's not a perennial here where I live, but I don't like to buy the plant every single year because it gets very expensive. If you can believe it, these are plants that I had from last year, and they were plants that I got for free. Many times at the end of the season, people are just throwing away their annuals. You can often find annuals for free that way. A friend of mine that's part of a garden club takes care of this one area in town, and she called me up and said, "Hey Vita, I'm going to be throwing away all of the geraniums. Take whatever you want." You better believe I drove right over and I took as many of the geraniums as I could because they were just going to be thrown away. They were going to die when the frost was coming that night. Now, I've made many videos showing my process on how I overwinter geraniums. I personally like to overwinter them bare root, although you can overwinter them a lot of different ways. A popular way is to bring them in and treat them as a houseplant. Personally, I like to just bring them in and forget about them for a number of months. I'll put links to those videos down below. So here's the process in a nutshell. You're taking the plant well before it gets hit by a frost. You're taking all the dirt off of the roots. Then you're taking the plant and you can either put it in a paper bag, in a cardboard box, and some people just hang it upside down in a cool, dark area. I like to bring it down to my basement because my basement does not freeze, but it stays generally somewhere around 60 degrees Fahrenheit during the winter months. And the plant is asleep. It literally is just sticks and it starts to die back. Eventually all the leaves fall off of it and you wonder to yourself, how can this be? But trust me, the process really works. It's so amazing. I check on the plants once a month. I soak the roots in water, or at a minimum, I spritz the plants with water. And then during the late winter months, I eventually revive or wake up my bare root geraniums. And within a matter of weeks, you see them go from these dead sticks to suddenly the leaves start coming back to life. And eventually, here you go, you end up with a nice, vibrant plant. What I really love about this process is that the plants actually get bigger and bigger over time. And that's not a bad thing. You can actually take parts of those bigger pieces of the plant and root them. And I've also made videos showing my process on how I like to propagate my plants in order to get more free plants. And it's just using a process called cuttings. So in this particular planter, there are 3 geraniums here. And I wanted to show you some basic care that I give because it's so important to care for your plants. I feel the more that we care for our plants, the more they reward us back. The first thing I want to show you is look at all the flower buds that are on this plant. It is just amazing how happy it is. There are a number of them even on the back side here. In order to encourage the plant to give off more flower buds, you want to be very diligent about deadheading spent blooms. A spent bloom looks something like this. Now, if you wanted to collect the seeds off of your geranium, then you don't want to deadhead your plant. You want to be able to let it go to seed. We still have much of the season left, so I don't care to collect seeds right now. It's more important for me to have my plant send out buds and send out more blooms. I'm just going to use hand pruners, and I want to follow the flower stalk all the way back. And that would be to this point here. So you want to just cut right at the end of that stem. And then you can just take this and put this in your compost pile. By deadheading your geranium, you're just telling your plant to continue flowering for you. It tells the plant, do not set seed yet. Another thing I like to do is just remove any leaves that don't look very good, just to make sure my plant stays tidy looking. So I'm just coming in and I'm pulling off any brown leaves. I'm also going to pull off any yellow leaves. And we're not going to touch something like this because it's the blooms and it looks really pretty right now. We're also not going to touch something like this because those are the flower buds that will eventually turn into the blooms. I want you to see that little piece right here that's sticking up. That's actually going to set seed. So what I plan to do is, in this particular instance with this plant, because it's already starting to set seed, I will leave just one on my whole entire plant. And don't worry, just by me doing that, it's not going to tell all of these plants in here to set seed. But I just want to be able to let this one go to seed. So in a future video, I can show you my process for saving the seeds on a Pelargonium or a zonal geranium. Now you may be like, wait a minute, Vita, you just said remove all the spent blooms and don't allow the plant to go to seed. I do have to share one thing. When it comes to Pelargoniums or zonal geraniums, my experience has been most of the times when a plant starts to go to seed, it very infrequently actually creates those seed pods like the one I just showed you. So it's beneficial to cut all the spent blooms back. But if you do find that it is starting to create a seed pod, keep one or two on there. And the reason I say that is 9 out of 10 times, at least in my experience, the plant is not setting seed. So I would rather remove those spent blooms. In fact, when it comes to collecting the seeds off these type of geraniums, it's not like the plant is going to have a whole bunch of seed pods on it. It very rarely does, at least from my experience. We have a little more deadheading to do, and after that I want to show you my process for fertilizing my plants. And here's another example. We're just going to follow it down and we're going to snip. Some other plants that you see in here are the variegated vinca vine, and I overwintered that in my garage, and I'm able to propagate that very easily. The beautiful blue colored flower that you see is an annual, and it's called trailing lobelia. I love to collect the seeds from that, and then I like to start the seeds indoors. And the same is true on this side. We have the beautiful white trailing lobelia. I'll put links to videos showing you my process for collecting the seeds in case you're interested. And before I forget, I actually want to pop up on the screen what these planters look like when we first put them together, because they've changed a lot ever since we got them planted. For fertilizer, I like to use Miracle-Gro all-purpose plant food. And I like to buy it in bulk. I buy it in a nice big box like this. A lot of times you can find this at big box stores or Sam's Club, Costco, or even on Amazon. And inside the box, the packet of fertilizer looks just like this. And the directions on the box say to mix 1.5 tablespoons of the fertilizer to 1.5 gallons of water, and do that in a watering can. I like to fertilize all my annuals, including these zonal geraniums, every 1 to 2 weeks. And I just store my fertilizer in some sort of a Tupperware container, just like this. Now, everything I've gone over today is very, very important, but I want to share a few more things. I do have these 2 container pots set up on drip irrigation, and I really feel that helps. But not everyone can set up all their container pots on drip irrigation. That is totally fine. Just make sure that you're giving your plants plenty of water. We've had a very hot, very humid summer so far. So I've been coming out here and giving these plants additional water on top of the drip irrigation just to keep them happy. In case you're wondering about the potting mix, I like to make my own potting mix. And the potting mix I make is 3 parts of peat moss, but you can use cocoa coir, to 2 parts of my homemade compost, but you can buy a bag of compost if you like. And then I add a 1/2 part of vermiculite and a 1/2 part of perlite. Both of those I buy on Amazon in bulk. And then I add a small amount of dolomite lime, and that's to offset the pH levels of the peat moss. You can use whatever potting mix you like. Just make sure that it's well draining. And we're going to fertilize this guy as well. And I am totally okay with having water go on the leaves. Within a matter of the next hour, this plant will dry off, no problem at all. I wouldn't want to be doing this if the sun was coming right down on the leaves. I wouldn't want to burn the leaves. Do you remember when we put this planter together? Look at the beautiful pink flowers on here. With these geraniums, these were also overwintered, bare root, and this container pot is not set up on drip irrigation, so I definitely need to be diligent about coming in and watering this container pot. But I'm really happy with how it's looking. Again, I'll put up on the screen what it looked like the day that we planted this container pot together. It hasn't been that long since we put it together, and it really has filled in nicely. Since the sun is coming in on this plant right now, I'm going to be a little more careful, and I'm just going to water at the base of the plant here. And we're giving it some nice fertilizer as well. And I'm going to come in on the back side and do the same thing. I want to make sure that the plants are all getting water from every angle of the container pot. And if you look carefully, you'll see that there are also a number of flower buds on these plants as well. The Dusty Miller is a plant that I was able to overwinter in my garage. And then we have some perennials at the base here. I love to use perennials in a lot of my container pots. We have Lamium as well as the Creeping Jenny. So here are some geraniums that I overwintered, and I didn't get into any sort of pot or container yet. It happens, right? And part of the reason I'm showing you this is maybe I'm not alone. Maybe you also have some sort of a perennial, some sort of an annual, and you still have not gotten it into the ground. Don't feel bad. And just like my flower beds, I'm really giving myself grace. It is totally okay. We are human. And after all, gardening is a hobby. We should really enjoy the process. So I don't want these geraniums to die. I work so hard to overwinter them. Many of the geraniums that are left over in this tray here were actually geraniums that I overwintered in my garage. It was an experiment to see if I could get them to overwinter inside of a pot or a container, but in the garage. And they did live for me, which was super nice. So I need to give them a chance, and there's still plenty of summer left. I figured we'd get a few of them potted together, and then after this video, I'll try to get the rest of them potted up. So when it comes to potting them up in a container, I like to use a slow release fertilizer. And that's what I did with the other container pots that I showed you. I like to buy Osmocote. I buy it in bulk on Amazon, but you can also find it at many of your local garden centers. I find that with my annuals, giving them that initial slow release is helpful. Giving them really good soil or potting mix is also helpful. And then on top of it, giving them that extra boost of the Miracle-Gro just makes for a wonderful plant. And what I'm telling myself is we're only going to do one geranium per each of these pots. They're not very big pots. If I find in a month that these plants are outgrowing these pots, I can always bump them up. But they definitely need to come out of these small pots where I put them initially. So the geranium that we're going to plant is a Regal type geranium, and it's called Elegance Red Velvet. I bought this particular geranium on clearance or markdown at the end of the season last year. And I told myself I wanted to see if I could overwinter it, which I was able to do. I also told myself that I wanted to try to propagate a Regal geranium from cuttings. I wasn't able to get to that, but that's one of my goals sometime later in the season is to propagate this plant. But for now, we need to get it potted up into a bigger container. Here's the front of the tag in case you're interested. And here's the back of the tag. The first thing I'm going to do is clean up the plant. I just want to remove any yellow leaves that are on here. There are some blooms that have already gone by. I can go ahead and remove those. There are some pieces that just don't look good. They're dead, so I'm going to cut them off. I have a lot of plants that still need to get put into larger pots and containers. So I figure at least by bumping them up a little bit for right now, it's better than nothing, because the larger the containers, the more potting mix they use. So for right now, that's not the goal. The goal is to give them a better chance of survival. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you've ever overwintered Regal Geranium bare root. I tried it in the past and I was not successful, but I'd love to know if you were successful. The only way that I've been successful so far anyway with overwintering Regal Geranium is in a pot, which was this pot right here, and just giving it the slightest amount of water. And I kept it in my unheated garage during the winter months, and the garage does not dip down lower than about 38 degrees Fahrenheit. So the plant was technically dormant. It started to lose its leaves, and then as the weather started to warm up, it started to wake up. I'm sure I could overwinter it in my house as a houseplant or in my basement, but I chose not to do that. I really prefer not to bring in a lot of plants and keep them as house plants if I can help it. It's just a personal preference. So I think that looks a lot better, and I'll monitor it, and if I need to come in and clean it up a little more over the next few days, I can definitely do that. So I'm just pushing the soil back because I want to be able to put the plant in the center here. And we just had some rain, so this potting mix is nice and wet. And I'm going to sprinkle some of the slow release fertilizer. I'm just loosening the bottom of the pot just to help get the plant out of the pot. And I'm also going to loosen up the roots. I don't want the plant's roots to go in a circle. I want them to spread out inside of the pot. But when it comes to loosening up the roots, you just want to loosen them up a little bit. You don't need to loosen all the roots up. And when it comes to how deep to plant it, you want to plant it just as deep as it was in the pot. And then we can go ahead and backfill. And then I'm just pressing down, and then we can backfill a little more. And I want you to see how pretty the blooms are on this. Eventually what's going to happen is the plant will fill in now. It just didn't have a very good chance of survival in that small little pot, but it's going to be much happier. And now we're going to give this a nice drink of water, and the water has some fertilizer in it as well. We are helping this poor little plant out. Someone asked me recently, what do I do with the tree stumps that are all around my yard? This is what I like to do. This year, I'm putting a lot of the pots that I'm building, like this one here, on top of the tree stumps. Even if they're not level on the tree stump, if I wanted to, I could always come in with some sort of a rock, like a flat rock, and I could put it on the back here just to make this level. But for right now, we did a big thing. We potted up this poor little geranium. We gave it fertilizer, water, and on a different day, I can always come in here and level this. But for right now, she's very happy. Well, while we have all these plants out, you can at least see what they look like close up. And I might as well go in here and clean them up. My goal for today is to get all of these planted. Some of them might be planted together in a bigger pot. Some of them might get planted in a single small pot. Especially if I have a few that look the same, I can always put them in one single pot. But I'm just taking a look at them again, and I'm cutting back any of the old growth. See, this one here, it has a lot of growth that just doesn't look good. These were geraniums that I overwintered in my garage. I'm happy that they survived, but in some cases, there's just old pieces here that need to be cut off. I'm just removing the yellow leaves. Another reason I'm making this video this time of year is to motivate you, to encourage you, to start thinking ahead. I want you to see if, as the season goes on, maybe you have a family member or a friend that has a geranium and they don't want their geranium. Ask them to save it for you, and then you can have it, and then you can do what I've done, which is overwinter it. Or start looking on the clearance racks. Many times they sell what they call small little seed geraniums. They're just small little sprigs of a geranium. They'll sell them for like $1 a piece. You can load up on them. But I encourage you to do what I'm doing. If you're going to do that, you still have plenty of season left. Pot them up, fertilize them, keep taking care of them until your frost is about to come. And then follow along and I'll show you my process for how I overwinter my plants. I have been coming in here during the summer months and I have been doing this job. But you know how it is. Sometimes things just happen and you don't get to it. So I'm doing it again. I'm going through and cleaning it. Now there's one here that's going to seed. I am going to keep it on there again because I would love to collect the seeds off of this one. But I want to show you, of all the ones we've been cutting back, many of them are not going to seed. And that's what I was trying to explain earlier, is that oftentimes it's very hard, I find, to find those seed pods. Something like a marigold, it is super easy to find a ton of seed pods, but when it comes to geraniums, not so much. I kind of want to cut this off because there's nothing else happening on the plant, but I'm going to wait maybe about a week. And once I can collect the seeds off of it, then I will cut it back. And actually, I'm looking at this plant. Here's the seed pod, but here are the blooms right there. Look how pretty that is. So if I can collect the seeds of that, how nice would that be? Many times when I collect the seeds, there might be only 4 seeds in each seed pod, but 4 seeds is 4 plants. So many different ways you can propagate geraniums. And like I said, I like to propagate them from cuttings, but they're also very easy to propagate from seeds. They're not that easy to collect the seeds because many times the plants just don't produce a lot of seeds on them. Some of the pieces might look dead, but if I see any sort of green on it, I'm going to keep it on there. And this at least gives you a general idea of how to clean up a geranium plant if you were to buy it and it looked sad and pathetic like some of these do. But definitely if there's a stick with no green on it, I'm going to cut that off. And if you're not sure, you can always use the fingernail test and basically scrape the wood. And if you see a little bit of green, that tells you that there's still a little life left in there. We're almost done cleaning these up. I want you to see how pretty this one is. I would say this is one of my favorites. It does not deserve to be in these little pots. My friend Pam gave me a couple of these, this one as well as I believe this one here. And again, this was last year at the end of the season, right before a frost was hitting. And then a few of the red ones that I showed you earlier in my container pots, those came from my friend Linda. The next one we're going to plant here is called the Elegance Royalty White. And again, it's a type of Regal geranium. I love to grow in container pots. I really enjoy it. And I find that the plants, depending on what the plant is, sometimes they do really well. versus if you put them in the landscape. Although when it comes to geraniums in general, they're very versatile. I do feel like you can get away with putting geraniums in the landscape as well. The main thing is just give them what they need. Give them the water, give them the fertilizer, continue deadheading them. And if you do those types of things, then the plant will be totally fine. Slow release fertilizer. And what I'm also doing with the tags is I'm just tucking them into the pots. So in the fall time, when it comes time to overwintering these, then I can go ahead and keep the tags with the plants. Just going to rough up the roots a little. Since I do a lot of plants in container pots, personally, I don't like to keep big, huge pots in my garage. They take up a lot of space. So at the end of the season, you will see me taking the container pots apart. You don't have to do that. If you want to overwinter plants inside of container pots, you can just keep the plants in the container pots. But if you have a lot of pots like I do, then they can take up a lot of room. So these are just things that you want to keep in mind. So I'm just pressing down, and then I can go ahead and just push the soil back at the base. And now give it some water with the Miracle-Gro. What can I say? I have a lot of tree stumps. And now we have a plant on a tree stump. My homework for today is to get the rest of those geraniums planted so that in a future garden tour, I can show you where they all went. Your homework is to be on the search for geraniums or to keep the geraniums that you have going so that you can overwinter them. Because I'm telling you, it is the best thing ever. Who wants to buy geraniums every single year? I look forward to bringing you along as we continue through the season with the geranium plants, and then I'll eventually show you my process for overwintering them, and at later times what I do to check on them in the winter months and then eventually wake them up. I hope this video gave you some sort of ideas or inspirations on things you can do in your own garden, and until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.